Hello, my name
Hello.
is Xavier. I use they, them pronouns.
My name is Belle. I use she, they pronouns.
My name is Maeve. I use she, her pronouns.
My name is AJ and I use she, her pronouns, and we are VIP, very important, impactful people. Remember it.
And this week, we all picked four different true crime magazines, all with incredibly wacky covers, some ridiculous ads, and just strange stories in general. Because we wanted to use them to relate to the movie this week, which is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt by Fritz Lang.
And so this movie, it's a 1956 film, as Xavier said, directed by Fritz Lang, and it follows the adventure of author Tom Garrett as he and his father-in-law conspire to frame Garrett for a crime that he did not commit in order to expose the flaws in the justice system that sentence people to death. And they have all the stuff laid out. They've got all the evidence to his innocence, and then Garrett's father-in-law dies along with the evidence in a fiery car crash. So now it looks like he's headed to the electric chair. And it's a very tense ride when you've forgotten at the end that there maybe was going to be another twist, which then pulls the rug out from under you.
Yeah, so we have the main character, Tom Garrett, who is played by Dana Andrews. And then there's Susan Spencer, who's the love interest slash fiance, played by Joan Fontaine. And Austin Spencer, her father, played by Sidney Blackmer. And then Roy Thompson, played by Philip Bourneff.
Yeah. And so I think we're just going to jump right into some crazy magazine covers. To start off, we're going to look at AJ, you want to take it away?
Sure, I can start. Yeah, so this is one article that I found from 1945, and this is a little side thing that I thought was pretty funny, that you can see like the writing that where it has like the different names of the, I guess, articles that are going to be in there. It says Mr. Lang meets the inspector, which I thought was just funny because, we have this film directed by Fritz Lang, and then coincidentally there's this Mr. Lang guy in this True Detective magazine. But the part that I really wanted to focus on was kind of this murder in Act 1 that goes along the bottom, because this actually relates to a reading we did a couple weeks ago by David Lehman called The Perfect Murder. And in the first chapter, it was called The Corpse on Page 1, which kind of, this reminded me of that kind of in how in true crime and also like Sherlock Holmes style detective films, you have like this corpse and it's like, who did it? Like who committed this crime? And, we don't necessarily know, but we're going to find out. And I think that this film in particular is a slightly like atypical noir film because we actually don't totally know who committed the murder. We just have this, we hear about this murder and then we hear about Garrett's plan to like frame himself for the murder, but you don't think he's actually committed it. So it's sort of in a way almost like more of a Sherlock Holmes type film than it is a noir film, just by nature of like not knowing and not being like inside the crime as we usually are with other film noir movies.
Does definitely, we've discussed in class Knives Out, and it does relate especially to that because in that one it is also a double twist where you think you actually know exactly what happened and you're waiting for the characters to figure out what actually happened, or in this case to prove that this guy's innocent. And then at the end you find out, wait, there was another mystery going on this whole time, because at the end you've kind of forgotten, oh yeah, we do have this murdered woman who no one knows who murdered her. I guess, but that's not important. We're trying to save this main guy, which then reveals at the end, double twist, there's a hole inside of the donut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like this movie does a really good job about at like making us focus so much on who's not guilty that we do kind of entirely forget about, oh, someone has to be guilty.
Yeah.
uh, and we literally don't figure it out until the very end, and the only way we know is that he says the wrong name, right? And it all starts to fall down around him. And yeah, it's just we literally had no idea what we were watching this whole time. It feels
Yeah, it feels kind of crazy for them to bring it up like in the final act, because traditionally in noir films we are like inside the crime, and we assume for most of this movie that we are like inside the crime, inside like the staging of this fake crime. But then there's actually a whole nother layer to it where it's like the guy pretending to have committed a crime actually committed that crime, which is just like it's kind of goes along with like this idea of like unsuspicion, and like even like the good guys are probably bad guys, and maybe a guy pretending to be a bad guy is actually really just a bad guy. So it's crazy.
yeah, totally. And yeah, it's interesting that the murder happens before we ever see it, and then um, everything develops in the last like 10 minutes.
Mhm.
That pardon is literally ripped away from him.
So I think that definitely covers very typical of the murder in Act One, and we kind of in this one kind of flipped it. There was the murder in Act One, but then you forget that's what it's about.
Mhm. Yeah.
You are. I believe Xavier or Belle. I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I'll definitely do mine.
Okay, so Belle, you got the 10 Dime Detective magazine.
Yes, so this is a 10-cent detective magazine, and it was published in 1941. So really at the beginning of the noir era. And I just thought it was so interesting. I think it's so expressive. And the thing that I really want to talk about, obviously we've got this villain of a man here, and we've got our classic femme fatale with that horrible, brutal expression on her face. But what really interested me was the camera and the fact that you can see this like reporter or whoever they are, crime photographer, in the shot itself, in the illustration itself. I think it's really interesting because it kind of really speaks to that obsession with recording, that obsession with technology, and like photographic evidence that we really see in noir and in this film. Um, like for example, um, I feel like, okay, so yeah, there was a really interesting moment in the film for me that really spoke to this, the influence of these detective magazines and even fact detective magazines on noir. And it was when they were at like the spot trying to get pictures to prove that like he's not guilty, um, with the newspaper in it, and they open the newspaper and there's like a crime photograph in there with an arrow pointing at the scene of the crime. And I thought that was just a really crazy moment because what was going on in the newspaper, what was going on like at in the scene itself. And then they go on to like take the pictures, and those are so important and such definitive evidence that when they are missing, there's no way to proceed as planned. um and so yeah, like the fact that like cameras became so portable, so easy to take around to crime scenes, and just like to definitively show the entire public what actually happened. Like that power really started to come about at this time. So I just thought it was really interesting, that they're actually catching the people in the act on this cover. um
Yeah, I think this totally relates to the film because there's that obsession kind of with like evidence, and there's a lack of evidence at the beginning of the investigation. So then um, Garrett sort of goes around sort of like fabricating evidence, and the father-in-law is, you know, taking pictures as like proof that, you know, they like staged all of this stuff. And then you have like this image, which is like the guy catching them in the act, except maybe they're actually like the bad guys. Or maybe maybe it's staged as well. I don't know. But yeah, I think like the photos and like taking pictures were a major part of this film.
And they really like the way that things were shot. They really focus on the cameras themselves in a lot of shots, like in the courtroom. And there's when they're at the spot, when they go to take the photo out of the camera, they really zoom in on it. And so yeah, it's just like this obsession with photographic evidence, and with it being the end all be all.
Yeah, exactly.
Like how to solve a crime. But it was like really like kind of bastardized in the film. Like they really abused that evidence. So yeah, it makes you question what's actually going on this cover.
Yeah, the photographic evidence really brings it beyond the reasonable doubt. Like it gives the hard proof. And at this, like the digital photographs that can then be published in the magazines and easily taken really kind of open it up to the public and have them form their own opinions of things, which is clearly what the evil lawyer running for governor or mayor is trying to get everyone, the juror, to form his opinions by using his coaxing and stuff. And the photographs are really what would have said, no hard evidence, this is what it is. And it gets destroyed. And then they're back to, we have to just sort of guess now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even with the photos, you know, it's the classic noir thing of you never know what you could believe. We're supposed to trust the justice system and trust like this photographic evidence, but you know, in the end, Garrett did it, even though all these staged photos were meant to say that he didn't and would have exonerated him. So, you know, it's always deeper than you think with the crime.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very important part of noir. It is very much deeper.
So
it's
many
never what you think it is.
Yeah.
Not. It's always something different. And Xavier, you actually have a front and a back cover for us.
Yeah, I've got managed to find a table of contents so we could at least see what some of the stories are like. You can see in the cover this one also has a camera, so clearly this is a theme that you can see in both these magazines and in noir. And you know, there's obviously I think with most of the covers we've seen here, including this one, there's like this weird sense of like crime and sexiness. You know, she's wearing this red dress, her shirt's a little bit unbuttoned, and the other one, you know, she's wearing another red dress, but she's got a gun and she's looking menacing, but you know, ooh, gotta look pretty. So I think that rings true in this magazine, and you know, that's the objectification of just women in noir as well. But the stories here are what really intrigue me and what like relate to the film the most. You know, if you look at who killed the happy fiddler, the little note underneath says a note written by a man who couldn't write, spelled doom. So it's even like, again, there's this evidence that supposedly is, I mean, I don't know, I can't read the story, but you know, context clues, there's supposedly this evidence that is making it seem as if this man committed a crime, whereas dude couldn't even write. It can't be him, but still, you know, it's always there's something going on in the evidence. You can't trust everything. And then we've got, you know, we've got more like sex appeal in the news stories, you know, and Beyond a Reasonable Doubt, there's the burlesque dancers, and you know, they've got a bit of this ditzy voice, you know, like in the club. And then here we've got Death Dates the Beauty Queen, Female Sleuth, and Blackjack of Death. What about women in crime? It's this weird fascination with like either deadly women or women that have died and have been the victim of a crime. Um, as we see in Beyond Reasonable Doubt, there's realized dancers. And, I finally, there's the fact that one clue could make or completely break a case. We see Case of the Cautious Criminal, the telltale clue in the woodpile, trapped a cunning killer. It was just one thing that got him, otherwise it would be a perfect crime. It's there's always just a tiny slip up, and in here, obviously, it's the fact that one guy had all the evidence and it just disappeared like that. It could always just turn like a dime without any thought.
I think what you said about like it's so close to the perfect crime is like so noir,
Yeah.
because that is like everybody's goal is to get away with it like completely scot-free, like there will be no effects, they will live exactly the happy life that they have always dreamed of, and it will all be perfect because they've done the perfect job at the crime. And I just think that like, oh, almost is like just so key here.
Yeah.
Postman and cigar.
Yeah.
It seems like he actually, literally, it was one word, not even just one word, one name.
Yep. And she, oh, I also think it's important to talk about that he like immediately, his defense when he said the wrong name was, I saw it in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that that's very telling. I know it doesn't have to do with this cover, but I just think that that's a very telling little moment. And like he had like something to fall back on, but it wasn't good enough.
No,
Yeah.
because she knew, and that's what happens in the end. They've got that little back support, but in the end, it's just not enough.
Just not enough lumbar support.
Oh. One tiny wood chip broke the back of this case,
Yeah.
It was the smallest thing.
I also love that the hand holding the camera in this is like kind of disembodied.
Yeah.
And it's also like, it's like angled towards like what's going on with her hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like giving this like omnipotent like vision imagery, where it's like the camera sees and knows all. I know exactly what you're doing, even though you can't even really tell like what's going on in this cover. She's reaching into her purse for whatever reason, a guy's taking a photo, but it gives off this like, oh, you got. The camera sees it all.
The hand of justice comes down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other thing that that Xavier brought up briefly about kind of women either being like criminals or being the victim of a crime. I thought that just reminded me of how the character of like Patty Gray, when people are like the police are investigating about her and asking questions to like her fellow dancer friends, they're always like really negative about her. Like they talk about her like she, maybe she was a social outsider, but like just how consistently everyone is talking about her in like this like downtrodden way, I thought was really weird and kind of significant.
Someone was like, if you don't know her very well, you're gonna hate her. You got to know her a lot more to despise her.
Yeah.
It's like, how could you? Like, that's the most horrible thing. Like, yeah, like everybody who meets her hates her so much, but everybody who knows her a little bit better hates her even more.
Like, what is going on with her?
Yeah.
What could she possibly say or do?
But yeah, I don't know. And yeah, the way that all of those women like were treated by others and treated each other was very like antagonistic.
Right.
How noir kind of works. It's like there's no really bond between most of the female characters. I don't think we've seen yet. Well, the two club dancers, it seemed like they had a bit of a
rapport.
Yeah, but I would love to see like a little girl girl relationship
Little
where they're
friendship.
loyal to each other. So that is there, and we can go to the last one, which is also True Detective. 25 cents this time, worth more.
Ooh.
Yeah. So the girl in the death trap, and what I really found connected to the film with this is the word, or the two words, death trap, because it's a very weird tangle of death traps in this that Garrett gets into, gets out of, falls into, intentionally steps into. Because chronologically, what happens is he murdered Emma, and that opened up the possibility of him falling into the death trap of them figuring out that it was him, which didn't seem like it was gonna happen. So
No.
it seems weird that he would then intentionally step into this other death trap of getting tried for this, and having all this evidence planted, like basically tying him, like, cranking the jaw shut on this death trap completely calmly. That but it's the same death trap as before, it's just you're cranking it yourself this time, and but you have a way out, like you've got the key to get out of there. Then the key gets stolen or burned up, and he's like, oh, it's gonna fall, and he gets out at the last minute, only to trip and fall into the original death trap, because he's really a bit of an idiot at that point, where he's been so precise this entire time. I mean, they thought of everything, like, we'll get the makeup in the seams, we'll get the stocking in the car, we'll have the withdrawal of the money, we'll have the locket there, have everything, we'll have you canoodling with all these club dancers, and they're so precise. And then at the end, it's a name, one word spoken to one person, that gets him thrown back into the other death trap. Like, that is just a weird web, and it seems like he probably would have just been better off in the first death trap, because it didn't look like that was closing anytime soon. They waited 2 weeks, no suspects, and he just decided to become a suspect of the crime he committed in order to give himself amnesty from that. No, not amnesty. That's in order to clear himself from that crime and make all suspicion go away. But it seemed like there was no suspicion in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It seems like he had already committed the perfect crime, in the sense that he had kind of gotten away with it and nobody was really coming after him. No one had enough information to go off of. And I don't know if
Yeah.
yeah, nobody knew what he did, but I don't totally understand. I'm trying to like rationalize why he would like keep going, make himself the like fake but actually the real like perpetrator of this crime. I don't know if it was like for the fame, or like so that people would like buy his books or something, or if it was just some like sick fascination that he wanted to like become involved in that. But I just
I
crazy.
think it would make the most sense for it to be like a sort of, he wanted to commit the perfect crime, maybe, but part of him was not satisfied because he was
Mhm.
getting away with it too well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no one knew what he did, and he wanted that
He needed there to
notoriety.
be a little danger
Yeah,
involved. He
it's
was getting
it's
away with
again it it's again the obsession of just going deeper and deeper into the crime. He wants as much involvement as possible, even though like he already did it. He could have gotten away, but nah, I need more. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Let me see how much more I could do and unravel.
Simply
And
committing the crime wasn't enough.
Yeah.
not enough involvement to literally commit a murder.
No.
And he had to have everyone think he did it and then be like, "Oh no, good, you
Look,
didn't."
I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Weird selfishness to I don't even know, yeah. Like who knows what it is. I'd have to bank on just obsession and like
yeah.
desire for more, but
Yeah, I definitely think we could tie that into the concept of fetish somehow, because it's just like it's not
Mm.
going to be, it's not enough to just go through it and get away with it. There has to be, you almost don't get away with it, and then because like
yeah.
getting it is no satisfaction at all if there's nothing else to it.
And the fetish factor honestly makes sense because I mean, yeah, you've got all this like this underground like sex appeal in this movie. It's there's the club. It's the murder involves a burlesque dancer, and clearly he's in love or feigning being in love with the other dancer. Um, it's just yeah.
Yeah. I also think like even when like he says the wrong name and it starts to go downhill, we still don't see her make the call. We see her try to make the call, and then we don't know if she's going to do it. She like gives up. Like they hang up the phone, and then we go to the like the penitentiary or whatever. He's about to get his pardon. The phone rings. So it's literally they drag it out way past when they had to just like keep us like in suspense whether or not he's going to escape that death trap.
Right.
Mhm. I think there are a couple things that happen in this film that are weirdly convenient, like almost too convenient. Like how Austin Spencer, the father-in-law, hears about this murder, and he's like, we should like frame or like someone for this murder with like fake evidence just to see like how corrupt the system is for fun. Like he just really like that's really convenient that he thought about doing that at that time with that particular murder that he read about. Like how I don't maybe like Garrett knew that he would like want to do something like that, but I don't know if that was even expected or if it's just supposed to be a coincidence that happened.
Yeah, because like when he was explaining it, he was talking about like his motives, and they were like purely because like he didn't want her Emma to get in the way of like what he had going on. So it seemed like it just like happened, and then by coincidence like, oh, here's a way to be proved innocent
Yeah.
for this thing that we don't know that you committed, but it's the exact same case somehow.
Mhm. And then it's also like that with the photo evidence that coincidentally gets destroyed when he gets in a car accident.
He literally
That,
takes it out of the safe, gets in the car, and then like within a minute, it's all burning.
yeah.
Like how? Yeah.
The whole thing seems like it's kind of the perfect story. Like maybe that's why he wanted to, because the crime he committed was kind of boring. That was a boring story. Like I just did it, I got away with it. That's boring. Let's because he said he's writing this new book, and I mean, he's lying to her. He says this is research for the book, but maybe it was research for the book. Like he wanted to get this down. I'm forgetting if they said he was a mystery writer, but I'm pretty sure he was. And he people have actually done this. A guy did commit a murder so that he could write a book about it and did not get caught. So that could be what he was trying to do the whole time. It was just his ego getting in the way. Like he was smart enough to get away with it. It's clear he did. And then it's like, no, it's boring. I need this has
Yeah.
to be a better story because he has to be the protagonist of his story.
Mhm.
Yeah. I also think like it could be that, but it also could be flipped. Like him being a writer could be the result of him having this sort of obsession and this like type of brain that needs more and more and more. And so that's why he's a writer. And that's also why he committed the crime in the way that he did.
Yeah, like what inspired what? Did the crime inspire writing or did the writing inspire crime? Because
Or both of them inspired by just
yeah,
like a weird person.
because you can write about your lived experience, and if you've committed crimes, that'll probably be like a pretty accurate story.
You might make a lot of money off that.
Yeah. And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to make a lot of money so that he can get married,
Yeah.
which doesn't really work out. I think another kind of I'm trying not to say interesting, unusual thing is I think how cold his fiance is throughout most of the movie.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
like, you know, she's like, all right, I don't you're like, stop hanging out with like burlesque dancers, like that's out of pocket. And then when he's like in jail and everything, she's like pretty not like even in trial, she's like not that fazed by it. And she's only really fazed by it at the very end, you know, when she can't make that phone call. But that
Yeah,
was I kind of liked it that she was sort of, you know, not giving in until the last second.
Yeah. I think it's a real interesting, a real cool move there.
Baller move.
There you go.
Just because like I don't think it was about love for her not being able to make the call. I honestly, like in that moment, I was having the impression that like she just realized she was going to be the reason that someone died.
Mhm.
I don't think it really mattered that much who it was. Like I don't really
Right.
believe they're like, I don't know that they really loved each other, but
Yeah, you're not convinced like from the second you see them. They
No.
never show like any affection.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
That's also what makes this thing really, really, it was actually very gripping the entire time, because you're really never sure what's going to happen, what's around the bend. Was there going to be a third twist that, wait, he actually, it's circumstantial that he knew this. That's what it all is.
It's all about that one little dollop of evidence,
Right.
or fabricated
One little
evidence.
dollop.
Just one
Yeah.
dollop, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
One little dollop on that smock of evidence, and then you're done. It doesn't take a whole entire tarmac of evidence. You just have to have that one little thing,
Mhm.
and you're
And
just,
you'll get that impact.
It's so impactful, man.
yeah,
It changes the whole game.
Yeah.
very impactful dollop on that little smock. It's not a full tarmac, just
Full tarmac.
and
That's
we,
my next band.
and I think that
Full
this is a
tarmac.
very impactful discussion. We
Yeah.
have been very impactful on the viewer, and have used words that have been so impactful.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really hope you continue to feel the impact of our work here.
Very interestingly incredible impact throughout the entire discussion.
Throughout the film and throughout the discussion.
Yeah.
So, and we have been very impactful people, V.I.P., and we will continue to be very interestingly impactful on your lives with just a little dollop of impactfulness.
We'll impact you next week, this time next week.
Yeah, thank you for giving a dollop of time.